Welcome to the 49ers You've Got Mail podcast, and we're coming to you from the 2023 NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis. I am joined by Seattle Seahawks senior reporter John Boyle. John, thanks for stopping by.
Hi, Lindsay. How you doing?
So we got to meet 3 times during the 2022 campaign. It's good to run into each other during the offseason.
Yeah, unfortunately, all 3 went your way, so we got to get a little better in the offseason, hopefully.
We'll see how 2023 goes. So obviously, we're here at the NFL Scouting Combine to take a look at the 319 top prospects that'll be rebuilding the rosters. But before we get to that, let's talk about coaching turnover on the Seattle Seahawks side. Fill us in on what's going on there.
Yeah, the Seahawks, as you guys well know in San Francisco, when teams win, you lose some assistants sometimes, and they did lose a couple of their top assistants. Their longtime quarterbacks coach, Dave Canales, went to Tampa Bay, where he will be the offensive coordinator, and then Sean Desai, who is associate head coach on defense this year, he's going to the Eagles to be their defensive coordinator. So a couple of tough losses to replace, but the way Pete Carroll always sees it is you want to help guys grow in their career, and it's a good sign if guys are getting these opportunities. So you're happy for the guy, but they're tough to fill those jobs.
Yeah, definitely a big coaching vacancy on the 49ers side as well. Been widely reported DeMeco Ryans taking off to be the Houston Texans head coach. Now we have defensive coordinator Steve Wilks coming in, highly touted, served as the interim head coach for the Carolina Panthers this past season. So a lot of enthusiasm on that side. So taking a look at draft needs for these two organizations, vastly different.
Mm-hmm.
2 first-round picks for the Seattle Seahawks. How does that affect the combine approach and then also the free agency approach?
Yeah, Pete Carroll and John Schneider have talked a lot this week about just what a rare and unique opportunity this is for them. Obviously, if you're doing well, you're drafting late, and for most of the time they've been here, they've been a good team drafting, in the 20s, whatever. So to have that number 5 pick that they got from Denver, that gives them a chance to maybe add just kind of the elite talent you usually don't get to draft late in the first round. And then I think they feel like they have a lot of flexibility with the 2 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks that even if they can't address a certain need in one spot, they're going to have a good chance to hit it somewhere in those first 2 rounds. So it's a great place to be.
Yeah, and in terms of positions of need, where do you see those for the Seattle Seahawks?
I think it starts up front on defense. They talked a lot about just needing to be more dynamic, more playmaking up front. It's not necessarily as simple as like you need an edge rusher or you need an interior guy. It's just somebody, they can be flexible, and they've got enough guys in those spots they like that they don't feel like there's just one obvious hole, but they need to find a playmaker there, whether it's, if there's somebody in free agency or even better, somebody you can get in the draft who's younger and cheaper, then that'd be a big get for them if they can just get more disruptive on defense. It's interesting, John Schneider talked about yesterday is kind of said we saw it up close in that playoff game of kind of the gap between where the 49ers are clearly better than the Seahawks right now is that toughness and athletic ability up front to just really make difference makers in the trenches.
Yeah, you can't think of a defensive front without talking about Nick Bosa.
Yeah.
2022 NFL Defensive Player of the Year.
And that's kind of getting back to the point like where you're drafting. I mean, the 49ers had to unfortunately have some bad seasons and have what was he, number 2 overall, right?
Yep.
To have that top pick. And so that's where the Seahawks feel like, okay, this is our chance, whether it's, whether they like a quarterback or whether they like a defensive guy, this is a chance to add some sort of true difference maker at that spot.
The 49ers, obviously, in a totally different situation. The pick is going to start in the 3rd round, whether it's pick 99 or 100. We just don't know yet because it's a bunch of compensatory picks in that 3rd round. For us, it's going to be a strategy of finding those late round gems. How would you put into words, I guess, Pete Carroll's draft strategy?
I think you really look back at what they did last year, and they talked about, they didn't drastically change how they did things, but I think they did just a better job. They feel like of bringing in the right fits, not so much physical traits, but just attitude-wise, competitiveness-wise. And they brought in a bunch of young guys who were ready to come in and compete for starting jobs, and we saw it pan out with, 5 starters, 7 guys who contributed pretty significantly out of last year's draft class. And with all these picks and the high picks, they're going to fully expect to find those guys again who, you never want to draft fully for need, but you want guys who can come in and have a chance to compete for big roles right away.
And I wanted to zero in on the quarterback situation.
Yeah, it's an interesting one.
Yeah, it's an interesting one with Geno Smith winning Comeback Player of the Year, but also entering free agency. Where does he stand in all?
Yeah, right now they're talking, obviously, Pete and John aren't going to give us a lot of insight into how the negotiations are going, but
Of course.
they're working on that, trying to get something done before he can become a free agent. Geno Smith made it clear after the season he'd love to be back here, but look, this is his one chance at the big payday he's never had in his career. So you can't fault him for wanting to get what he can right now. So we'll see how it goes. Everybody wants him back. I think probably ultimately that's the route it's going to go because both sides seem to want to happen. But what's interesting that we heard yesterday is whether or not they get Geno Smith back, there seems to be a sense of we could still take a quarterback number 5 even if we have Geno Smith because again, those chances to draft there are rare. By all accounts, there's a lot of first-round talent at quarterback in this draft class. So if one of those guys, the 4 or 5 names we keep hearing about in the first round, if they really like one of those guys at 5, or if it's a trade, back a little bit or whatever situation, I could definitely see a scenario where they come out of this draft with a quarterback in the first couple of rounds and Geno Smith on the team.
Yeah, I've heard it talked about throughout this combine, just that sometimes the quarterback classes obviously aren't as strong. And like you said, there's 4 or 5 of those quarterbacks that could potentially go in the first round. So we'll see how it all shakes out. Can you just fill us in on the type of player that Geno Smith is? We've obviously seen his production on the field, but off the field and what he brings to the Seattle Seahawks locker room.
Yeah, he was such a good locker room guy, and that's why I think he came into last season with, I think his teammates were really behind him, really giving him a good shot early to succeed in that competition. Not that Drew Lock wasn't given a shot, but just when you've been here a few years and the guys really respect you, that helps a lot. And then just in terms of a passer, I think just because he things didn't work out early for him, he's a backup forever, and people just kind of make assumptions about him without actually seeing him. But if you watched him practice the last few years, there's a ton of arm talent there, and that's what we saw. He led the NFL in completion percentage last year, making a ton of, not a bunch of easy checkdowns, making some big throws down the field. The guys like Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. So, he's a really good player. And then I think just the competitor he is a guy who waited a long time knowing he was better than maybe what people thought about him and knowing that he could be a productive quarterback if he got that shot. So just kind of the mentality to stick with it that long and then to seize the opportunity the way he did. It's really cool to see.
I also wanted to take a look at the NFC West at large. Obviously, top 2 teams in the division sitting right here. But just your early outlook for 2023 for the Seahawks and the division as a whole.
Yeah, the Seahawks are fully expecting to be a competitive team, challenging the 49ers and pushing for the playoffs again. If they get this draft right, you can add a couple more talented guys. You have a young class of guys last year that you expect to only get better. You think about you started 2 rookie tackles all
season long. Pretty good rookie running back too.
Yeah, running back who's a rookie of the year finalist, a cornerback who's a rookie of the year finalist. All those guys should only get better next year. And then you add, what you can add in free agency in this draft class. You got to figure out quarterback. That's obviously the big thing right now. But if Geno Smith is back or if they develop a young guy, they're going to fully expect to be right in the mix. Division-wise, it's so hard to figure out, what the Rams and Cardinals are going to be just because of all the different changes.
Lots of
coaching changes. The Rams trying to bounce back from a tough season. So, I think as always it'll be competitive, but it's way too early to know what it's going to look like beyond. I think we all expect the 49ers to be right up there again. Although, what are y'all doing at quarterback? That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah. So, we have some good updates. Yeah. Trey Lance is on track to be back in time for OTAs in May. Brock Purdy did suffer a slight setback, just to some swelling in the elbow, so that surgery is going to be delayed, but could happen as soon as next week, and then they're projecting him to be on the 6-month timeline. Okay. So we shall see. May also be in the market per John Lynch for a backup quarterback. So I think that's probably going to work itself out in the next couple weeks. So you've been with the franchise since 2015.
2015, yeah. I covered the team before that. So I've been around the team since 2009. So
fill me in on how, from personal experience, how you'd characterize this division rivalry between the 49ers and Seahawks.
I love it. It's, I'd love to see it kind of get back to where it was, and I think we saw a glimpse of that.
Reigniting this season.
Yeah, again,
Agreed.
like I said earlier, the Seahawks have a little catching up to do, but you go back to the early, Pete Carroll days when Harbaugh was in San Francisco, and just those teams, it wasn't just that they were like the best teams in the NFC, but how physical they were and just how tough those games were, and it just felt like such a great battle every time they met. So, if the Seahawks can maybe get those guys in the trenches they need to just get a little better up there and figure a few things out, we could hopefully get back to a rivalry like that, because it's a lot of fun when there's a couple teams up top battling each other.
I know that the 3 meetings this season obviously did not pan out exactly how the Seahawks would have liked it. It was okay for us. Do you have a favorite memory or just like a favorite play from those three meetings?
I don't know. Probably the late in the first half of the playoff game was pretty exciting when the Sixers were kind of hanging around. Then they hit that deep ball to DK Metcalf, and you're like, oh wow, they're really in this. And obviously it got away from them later, but that was probably, I think they knew some things were going to have to go right for them in that game to get the 49ers, and they had some chances early, and then unfortunately got away from them late.
What I'm learning very quickly just from completing this first year of being in the NFL coverage game, that there's really no lull in the off season.
Oh, no. It's, maybe get a week here or there.
Yeah, a week here or there. So what is the most exciting thing for you as a media member to be covering the Combine and just seeing the talent that is essentially set to enter the league?
Yeah, I mean, it's fun to see these guys and obviously watch them perform, but I also like, getting to spend some time around our scouts and seeing what they do, because, they're not always in the office that much, and when they are, they're kind of in their own world. So this is a good time to catch up with some of those guys and find out a little bit more about their world, because it's such a vital part of a successful franchise is that scouting department, but a lot of it goes on behind the scenes where people don't really get to know about. So we like to try to tell some of their stories as well here.
Cool. And we'll just close this out. Any other off-season hot topics that you heard from your general manager or from Pete Carroll?
No, I mean, the big thing really is, getting this draft figured out so they can take advantage of all this draft capital that they have, and then, figuring out quarterback. There's always some other things they need to decide in free agency, guys they might try to bring back, guys they might go add, but it's so much right now about getting that quarterback situation figured out.
Yeah, I have to say kind of the same on our side as well.
Sounds familiar, huh?
Well, thank you so much for your time, John. And thank you guys for submitting your questions. If you'd like to be featured on our next episode, make sure to submit on 49ers.com/mailbag, and make sure to check out this podcast on Apple and Spotify. Thanks so much.